sometimes when you ask a very direct, poignant question, the fact that the person won't answer it or won't even entertain the question, I think it speaks volumes. Because the answer is basic. It's simple. It's common sense. It doesn't matter how I feel. It doesn't matter what makes me happy or what makes me sad. It doesn't matter. What matters is Allah going to be pleased with me with doing such and such act, worshipping in this way, or behaving in a certain way? And if the answer to that is no, Allah will not be happy with that. It doesn't matter if you feel elated, over the moon about doing something.
How you doing, gents? You good? Yeah, very
How's
good.
it
Thanks.
going?
How about yourselves?
You didn't put your mask on. That's great today.
I forgot it.
No, don't do it, please. Don't do it.
Am I going to scare off your viewers? Yeah.
Be normal for once.
Me normal?
Have a normal conversation.
I'm not normal though.
Masks. Okay, so as some of you might think, Damans is a multi-millionaire living in a lovely big mansion with a piano in the back. But anyway, yes, he is. Daman, please go ahead.
No worries. I've got a few issues with a few things that was said. I just want to touch on those. Obviously, you're more than welcome to
in the stream earlier, or
correct. Just in the last conversation, and I believe the conversation before. I just want to touch on those. We could then move past them, or you could respond to them, and then we could talk if you'd like.
So you want to ask a question about what was said, or you want to?
Why don't you ask your thing first, then, man?
It's just because this might be fresh in people's minds. That's why I just wanted to bring it up. So, in regards to the gentleman that was just on,
something about how many Hindus did the Muslims kill? I don't know if you guys remember. I threw a number of 200 million out there. You said I pulled it out of thin air. I said, well, I read on a couple websites. So I rewatched that. You guys didn't actually give a number. What number do you think? Was it 0? Was it 1,000, 100, 100,000? Do you think 1 million? Abbas, you pointed out that actually Muslims ruled India much longer than I thought. Their initial.
Mike, for me, Mike, Mike, for me, the issue here really is this. Even if, let's say, for argument's sake, you said, oh, you know what, they killed 1 billion people here, for example, or there. For me, it would only mean anything in terms of the religion of Islam is if they were following the teachings of Islam. Then you have an argument. Otherwise, for me, it's irrelevant, because what I would argue is any injustice that you can point to, no matter whether it was one person that was innocent person that was killed. As a Muslim, I can't condone that because my religion doesn't allow me to condone such a thing. And Allah says it very clearly in the Quran, do not let your disliking or despising of a people make you unjust towards them. So to steal their property, to kill them, to persecute them, this would not be something that Islam would allow. Now, there are certain rules in terms of expansion and war and these type of things. That, yes, we don't shy away from that. Islam can operate both a situation which is expansive in war and it takes territory. That is an option. And we have an option of peace where we can have terms, peaceful terms.
Okay. So when do you wage jihad of the sword? When do you wage war to expand Islam, right? So I've heard people say, well, first you write a letter to the Kufr nations, right? You invite them to Islam.
But Mike, there's an issue, sir, because you're talking about religious legislation or religious approach, yeah?
Right.
And on what basis are you asking these questions? Because you're an atheist, right? There's no moral code here. You can do what you like.
Well,
if you got the might, you can go and invade Iraq and take all the oil.
Right.
You can go and supply weapons to two countries at the same time while they kill each other.
Well,
there's no reason to have a moral basis. So if the problem I have with these questions specifically from you is because you are an atheist.
You guys understand that Fitra, the innate knowing, correct?
Yes.
So when he was saying that he was trying to say that certain things are wrong, and then he quoted the Bible, he was only quoting the Bible not because he believes it, but because you were looking for some kind of documented evidence of what he's saying. He may have had a fitra of, because innate knowing isn't just for the believers, it's for everyone, correct?
Yeah, you're misconstruing the concept.
Right.
So this the first thing is, brother, the reason the point that was being made to him, that he has no, as an atheist, he has no foundation to make a claim about equality of human beings. In the discussion, he ended up referring to a religious text to give the idea of the equality between human beings, which is, this is not this is, so he, what he was, this was an admission of, whether he was aware of it or not, was that he agrees that as an atheist he has no way to justify the equality of human beings. Do you understand? It doesn't it's nothing to, if he said I feel, I think, it's coming from within inside me, you'd have more of an argument.
Okay, you would have been happy with that.
Fitra is more about a compass that guides you towards seeking the creator, worshipping one God, not specific rulings and judgments, etc.
No, for
It's
example,
in your Fitra to see. Obviously, if you saw someone being killed or raped, you that rises within you, and that's your part of your Fitra. But also knowing that this tree is not God, or this man is not God.
No, for sure. The God aspect, I understand. But I was, like you just said, there's certain morality as well. It's like the children, they know that it's not right to harm animals. Like if you was to beat a chicken in front of a kid, the kid would start crying and go, why are you hurting the chicken? Like they have an innate feeling of, we shouldn't be doing certain things, bad things, and it upsets them. And I think that's the idea of Fitra I was talking about. But yes, I do agree that it's about knowing God.
Got a different concept. Maybe you have a different concept.
Possibly. But I was just going by what a conversation I had previously, but never mind. The other thing was the Sikh perennialist thing that you mentioned earlier. It was, I don't know if it's a better way to explain it, but the way I would explain it is, Sikhism says that everyone can get to the mountain using different ways. So you could get to the mountain via the forest, you could get to the mountain via the sea, you could get to the mountain via the desert, but once you get to the mountain, there's only one way up the mountain, and that is through the righteous path, as I've mentioned previously. Obviously, you might have a slightly different variation on what the righteous path is in your religion.
Well,
but
the problem with that analogy, of course, is that you could end up falling in a cave on the way up. You could end up drowning in the lake and be consumed by piranhas. The reality is that these type of analogies, okay, they don't really work. And the problem with analogies is that they're not a glove fit. They're not an exact, way of looking at things. So all rivers leading in the sea, actually they don't. Some end up in underground caverns. Some end up in a dead end and disappear into the ground. So the reality, so with these type of analogies, you could actually use it in support of Islam
and against it, because you could also say that there's people who may have joined Islam, but I'm not trying to go against Islam. I'm just saying, I was just using the perennialist.
I'm talking about specifically the concept of the analogy itself.
No, I understand, but I'm saying that
I'm saying that you can use it to support the claim that it leads to paradise. Doesn't matter what religion you are, doesn't matter what belief you are, but you could use the same analogy to talk about dead ends, pitfalls, and getting lost as well, right?
Yes, but you can also. Sorry, carry on.
But
I'll let you finish.
What I'm saying to you is, therefore, I believe that the analogy can't be used because it can be used with a polar opposite view.
Yeah, but analogies aren't supposed to.
A good analogy.
Doing it again.
A good analogy should be one that when you use it, it really can. It really has an explanatory scope, which is quite specific. And doesn't lead to huge anomalies and problems. But I think this type of analogy does. So I think it's not a good analogy. That's what I'm trying to explain to you.
No, I understand. So in regards to you saying it could be used for Islam and stuff, it could be used against Islam as well, because we could say that everyone who joins Islam doesn't always go down the right path 100%. There are people who have pitfalls there as well. So that isn't a way to discredit the analogy. Analogy is the best way we can make sense of something that is a bit more complicated, and that's all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to solve all the world's problems with that analogy. It was just a I believe you've just made a fallacious argument, a fallacy.
What did I do? Because you've compared the analogy that you raised was that all paths lead to
the mountain,
as it were.
But up the mountain is one way. Yeah,
right. But I said to you that actually the analogy doesn't work because of the reasons that I stated.
Yeah, you said there's pitfalls.
Then you've tried to use that analogy for people who accept Islam. And I think those are separate things. separate issues that we're talking about. I'm not saying that the analogy should be used for people who accept Islam or deny Islam. I'm saying the analogy itself is at fault here. Whether somebody accepts Islam wrongfully because they're ignorant and they just, I don't know, they just see something or they feel something, they know nothing about Islam and they just accept Islam. I'm not saying that that proves or disproves Islam. That's not my claim. My claim is that we have to go with the data that we have. And the general stereotypical perceptions that people have is that people who end up following religion are gullible, they're not very sophisticated, they're not very educated, or that they're in prison, they're ginger, and they have tattoos. These are some of the, I'm telling you, these are some of the stereotypes that people use.
Okay.
Right? And all I'm saying to you is, and that was my statement earlier, that the data doesn't actually support that. The data actually supports people who are average education level of postgraduate level. They have spent on average 7 years studying comparative religion. One of the other things that they noted was that initially they look at Islam, but they realize that there are a lot of obligations and duties within Islam. And then they look for easier options, Buddhism, Christianity, and what have you. And what the study found is that they actually end up returning back to Islam because what they discovered in Islam, they didn't find anywhere else.
Okay.
And 72% of those converts happen to be women.
I'd have to look at the stats, but I'll take your word for it. This is just a
well,
combo.
so
It's
what
not a
I'm trying to
debate.
say to you is that's very different. That's very different from the general perception, the general, let's say, stereotypical view of somebody accepting Islam.
Well,
and it goes against that.
But you have to understand where the general view comes from when you've got videos online, which is like, oh, look, I did this guy's shahada in under 2 minutes after chatting to him. It's like, you can see how they get these ideas about certain things. But anyway, to the points I came to the show about.
Before you go into your point.
Yeah, no
Assalamu alaikum,
problem.
Brother Jordan. Welcome. If you want to pop on, feel free, inshallah.
Yeah, Jordan,
I
if you want
read
to jump on,
converts
it's always
to
nice to
Islam
have you on.
are the smartest people on the planet. Oh, well, he's a Muslim, right?
He's a convert himself.
I was going to say, because you guys say
having a little
revert,
joke.
don't you? So he got that
having
wrong.
A little joke. He's having a little snigger. He's a little joke. He's a funny man, mashallah. I like Jordan.
But he used the wrong word.
That man, please go ahead.
Yep.
Ask your question, and Dr. Imran's going to jump in and answer you, inshallah.
Sweet. I've got about 6 different points. Obviously, we're not going to go through every single one because your time is precious.
So why don't you pick the thing that's bothering you the most?
They're all got some kind of niggling feeling to me, but I was going to give you a choice of picking a number between 1 and 5.
You go for it, Demans. The one that's not the most niggling for you.
All right, we'll go with number 3. 3 is the magic number. Oh, actually. Do you want to talk about the slave women situation?
You can just answer just ask the question.
Okay, Surah 4:24 says that you're allowed to have relations with a slave woman that your right hand possesses outside of marriage. And it was something Abbas said earlier in regards to where Islam teaches you to lower your gaze, to have self-control, to not go down the lustful road. And I think those are great qualities, and I think those things should be pushed in Islam. But when I read Surah 4:24, it really confused me because I feel like it goes against those exact teachings.
Yeah, I'm glad that in your reading you got to 4:24, and that was the verse that really bothered you. Yeah.
Well, is there something that I missed before that?
Yeah, probably from verse 1:1 all the way to 4:23. You probably
the first surah I had no issues with. The first surah I was like, yeah, this, because it's only like 12 lines, and that was like, yeah, it sums up everything that you need to know, which is good. But then, yeah. Anyway, what's your thoughts?
What about the 286 of the second one? Did you get through those? Or?
No, I didn't know. I think I got up to 89, and I was
That's
like,
the point that I was making. But so here is the point. First, tell me what is it for you that bothers you? Because all paths lead to the mountain, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So this would be a path that would lead to the mountain, right? Islam would be a path that led to the mountain.
Essentially, but obviously, I think this may either be misinterpreted. I'd have to look into the actual Arabic words and see what the Arabic words mean. But I wanted to get your understanding because for me, it seems contradictory because I think the points in Islam that says lower your gaze, control yourself, no sex outside of marriage, and all these other things, no adultery, essentially, I think are great things. I think those do lead to a good, positive society. But with this situation, I can't find a way to make it make sense that.
So I understand now. So now I'm going to step back. So I'm dealing with your principles, yeah, because you came on to defend the brother, talking about all the paths leading to the mountain.
I wasn't defending anyone. I was just giving another analogy, something to
I
explain.
understand.
Yeah.
And this is the same, a perennialist approach. So the perennialist approach is there's truth in everything. They all lead to the mountain, right? So on what basis are you then? What's your basis for having any criticism? So this is your particular criticism. I'll come to this. I've answered, this. I've done a 45-minute video on this specific topic.
Oh, perfect.
On EFL, where you can find it and look through it, and on specific on this verse because it's so oftenly quoted. But I'm just coming to your principle. So on your principle, where all paths lead to the mountain, they contain truth. On what basis are you then having a problem with this?
Okay, so like I said, getting up the mountain, there's only one way, and that one way, part of it would be self-control, which is lowering your gaze, not following lust, not just going with your desires constantly and putting your desires to the side or throwing them into the bin and trying to focus on what God has told you to do, which is lower your gaze and be good.
I want to know from you.
Sorry?
Because now you're making a distinction in the trajectory, yeah? So you have the path and then you have the mountain. So I want to understand from you, are religions only the path, or are religions also the way up the mountain?
So religions are the path, meaning the mountain, that God exists.
No, because you've said they're both things now. So I'm clarifying, because you said the religions are the path to the mountain.
But there's only one way up.
The way up the mountain, there's only one way. Understand? So that's the differentiation. So you're saying that all the religions lead to the mountain,
aka God. Everyone points to God.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So the mountain is God.
Yeah, essentially. And
in your analogy, right?
Yeah, and going up the mountain is connecting with God.
Okay. So if this would be one of those many paths that you believe that lead to the mountain, on what basis are you complaining about this particular path?
Like I said, I don't know how. I don't know if I'm confusing you, but it's literally because the book says, lower your gaze, control yourself in regards to lust and all these things, and I think those are the things that will lead you up the mountain. But this is obviously something that will get you in the pitfall on the way to the mountain.
Okay, so let me understand you. So what you're saying is, yeah, it's all wonderful, controlling yourself and everything, but this appears to be something that you're allowed to let your lusts go. Is
Correct.
That what you're saying?
Yes, that's
okay.
Yeah.
So that's a fundamental misunderstanding that you have of this specific verse.
Go for it.
So it's not saying that let your lust go and have your way with anyone. It's not saying this. And your concept of the understanding that of marriage is also incorrect within your understanding. So there's lots of things that you don't understand. So if all the paths that lead to the mountain, which is I would definitely like to know what climbing the mountain. I mean, how do you climb God? I don't know what you mean by this analogy. You can explain
climbing the mountain is connecting with God. That's connecting with God. Everyone points to the mountain and everyone says, look, God exists. And everyone's pointing to God, but then there's only one way to connect with God.
And now there's an issue now. Because every single religion it would teach a mechanism, a way of connecting to God. So I'll give you an example. The word salah, literally means connection. Literally means connection. And we are taught the salah, which we translate as prayer. We're taught how to do this and can literally connect with the Creator. In fact, we're told in the Quran that Allah says that all you need to do is call upon me and I will respond to you. O one who has transgressed against his soul, do not despair of my mercy. So we are told that we're at the top of the mountain already, bro. We're told that we are in connection with the Creator already. Salah, dua. There is no intermediary between man and God. We don't go through any human being.
You shouldn't say that. You shouldn't say that.
We don't go through any. No, we don't go through any human being to worship the Creator.
You do, I'm afraid.
Yeah, tell me who.
Muhammad.
No, you're
Yes.
completely missing. No.
No, because one of the things that you have.
No, 1 second, Demands,
Yeah.
because I want you to understand. Are you saying? I just want to clarify that we pray to the Prophet Muhammad to pray to Allah.
You say that the only way to God is through Prophet Muhammad.
No, this is where the words are very important.
Yeah.
So either you're talking about showing you the way, or you're talking about connecting to the Creator. Do you understand? They're two different things.
Yeah. Yeah. So I can
explain to you. Let me give you the analogy.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can say take a left and a right and go straight down. There's a roundabout. Go across this, and then you'll be at Demands' house.
Mhm.
Or I can pick up the phone and talk to you, Demands.
Mhm.
One is showing the way to Demands, and the other one is talking to Demands, in connecting to the Demands. Do you understand? Yeah. So now, yes,
I'm glad Abbas is having fun.
whenever
Once I get a chance to talk, I'll talk. But carry on.
Whenever the prophets come,
Yeah.
they show you the way. They show
Okay.
you the path.
Okay.
The connection is direct. There's no. I do not pray when I'm praying. I'm praying to Allah directly without any
Okay.
barrier.
Let me ask you a question then.
So
Let me
it's
ask you.
very important that when you're
Bro.
answering this, you don't conflate these two words. But go on, please.
So you guys have claimed, because this is what Muslims have told me, that I can't say that, don't worry about it, I'll focus on Jesus, what Jesus taught, and when I die, I'll say to God, Jesus sent me. Jesus was the messenger for the past, and now the present messenger is Muhammad, and the only way to God is through Muhammad for the people now. Because according to you guys, Muhammad came for all people for all time in the future.
But Demands, you're doing the same thing I just told you not to do.
Which is?
You're conflating the directions to the path to the connection. You're talking about. You're saying that.
You're
saying. 1 second. Let me just explain. 1 second.
Bro,
you said there are many paths to go to the mountain, and one path up the mountain. I asked you to clarify what going up the mountain is, and you said this is connecting to God. Right? Yeah. I said our religion tells us that you can connect to God directly. In fact, the salah that we're taught by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the mechanism to connect directly to the Creator.
You also said you were already at the top of the mountain. That's what's not making any sense.
So
you can't be connecting to God with the salah if you're already connected.
If you're climbing the mountain is connecting to God, then we're connecting to God. So we've climbed the mountain, yeah.
After you've done salah.
Whenever we do salah, we're at the top of the mountain.
But when you're not doing salah, you're at the bottom of the mountain.
Demands. This conversation.
Because he's using the mountain analogy, and he's trying to take it too far. And you've been laughing for.
Demands, I'm laughing because there's a really funny jokes in the comments. And
no, I know. I've been seeing you putting them up every 2 seconds, bro. You're not
funny. So I want people to be entertained because you are an entertaining guy. Let's be honest.
I'm pretty funny, yeah, but that's laughing at me.
There you go. So I'm not being out of turn, because if it was somebody else who was a serious speaker or whatever, I wouldn't put comments like that up. But I know with you, it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek and a bit of joking. But Demands, the point here is this conversation is not going anywhere. I came to talk
about Surah 4. No, please, Abbas, let me finish one thing. I came to talk about Surah 4:24, and we've talked about everything else but that.
1 second. Dr. Imran, I think, quite frankly, launched the silver cruise missile. I'm not going to say silver bullet. I'm not going to say silver bullet. I'm going to say silver cruise missile.
That's your opinion.
Okay. With his initial argument, which was that you believe all of these paths lead to the mountain, right?
Bro, I came about Surah 4:24.
Relax for a second.
My beliefs have nothing to do with Surah 4:24. I just wanted an understanding, please.
What that then means, what the implication of that then is, what the implication is that everyone whose belief systems, whatever those belief systems are, they all lead to the mountain. Now, when Dr. Imran started to hone in on that argument, then you started talking about, as Doctor mentioned, the trajectory. You changed the concept of what it was to get to the mountain, as opposed to what was it to get to the top of the mountain. This is just all wordplay. It doesn't mean anything. It's just silly.
Bro, you understand what an analogy is? When you stick to an analogy and you keep using it... I listen to you, bro. Come on.
I understand, but when you make analogies, they have to at least mean something. They have to work. If you start making analogies about paths leading to mountains and mountains leading to the top, and then how you get to the top, all this, it just gets lost. People get confused, like what you're talking about.
That was literally...
It's very simple.
That was literally... Abbas, seriously. I only mentioned that in regards to the Sikh perennialist argument. That wasn't my
Yes.
point. I then later said I want
do
to
you
talk
agree with
about
that? But do you
slave
agree with
women,
the argument?
Surah
Do you
4:24.
Do you agree with that argument?
Bro, Surah 4:24. That's what I wanted to talk
No.
about.
Do you agree with
No,
the
you want to stick
argument
with
that all
the
parts-
mountain thing because to you it sounds ridiculous, and that's an easy
No, I'm
point for you to
saying, do
argue.
you agree
Bro, please,
with the
let's just have a
perennialist
conversation. I'm
view?
not trying to debate. If you gave me a really good example or an understanding
I'm
of what
simply,
Surah
I'm
4:24 means, I'd just go thank you very much and leave. But you guys are just talking about everything else but Surah 4:24.
We can talk about Surah 4:24. It's not a
Thank you.
problem.
That's all I wanted.
But the point here is, demands, when somebody poses a question, irrelevant of what the question is, if their stance of asking the question is on dodgy grounds, in other words, they don't have a listen, because demands, if your view is that all of these paths lead to the mountain, then Doctor's point stands that it's irrelevant what 4:24 says.
No, it
Because
is relevant.
you believe it leads
That
to
was
the
the point.
mountain anyway.
So the point I was trying to make, maybe the mantis was missed, was if all paths lead to the mountain, they all contain truth. Then on what basis were you making the critique? And your response was that it's not about going up the mountain. That's what you said, yeah. It's contrary to that
Yes.
because it's about following your lusts and desires. But the point, and I clarified, what do you mean by going up the mountain? You said this was connection.
Yeah,
And
but
I
that
said to you that actually Salah.
I thought that was just
explaining-
us trying to understand each other, not to pick
Yeah, but I'm
apart
trying to
this
explain to
analogy I made and then try and make
No,
it
no,
sound
it's not an
ridiculous. It's
analogy,
like, bro,
because the analogy is teaching something.
it's about
isn't
Surah
it?
4:24. That's the point, though.
Yeah, I understand. But your analogy is teaching something. Like I said to you, there's a 45-minute video on this, so you can feel free to watch that in its entirety. And I'll explain this to you in a moment anyway, because that's what you want to focus on. I'm trying to deal with the broader concept, because the issue is that until you clarify, until you understand the foundation principles in which you're bringing within your argument,
Yeah.
you're going to be stuck in this loop where you're just missing. So if all religions lead to the mountain, then that means that they contain truth. And so then on what basis are you critiquing this? Your basis for critiquing was connection, which is climbing the mountain. I said, well, Salah is connection.
But Salah wasn't
Now-
my query. I never mentioned
I
Salah.
understand, but
It
the-
was
the
the fact that
then
Surah
that goes back to my
4:24 goes against lowering your gaze and being chaste and
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't, dumb mans. Because lowering your gaze amongst who? Who do you have to lower your gaze to?
the opposite sex or even the same sex. Because like you was talking
No,
to the gay
No, I
gentleman.
don't have to lower my gaze. I don't have to lower my gaze with my wife, do I?
Okay, yeah, outside of marriage. I already said adultery. I already mentioned adultery earlier.
Okay.
Outside of
So-
marriage.
so-
Please
so-
don't
so-
please don't
so,
make this
okay.
a ridiculous argument, because it's not a ridiculous
No,
argument,
dumb
bro.
mans. The point I'm trying
I just
to
wanted a
make to
nice
you-
quick conversation and I would have left
The
you.
point, we are having a nice conversation, but if you start talking about mountains and paths and stuff like that, the people start getting lost, then we've got to bring it back to.
That was about the Sikh perennialism. That was what
Now,
that was about.
The point here is, demands,
Yeah.
we have to lower our gaze amongst, for who? For a non-mahram, for example, somebody that we can marry, we have to lower our gaze. We can't look at them lustfully. Yes, that's right. But Allah has ordained who it is permissible
To look at lustfully.
to have sexual. Look, are you telling me that you've never looked at a woman lustfully?
I have, and I hate myself for it because I should not be doing
What?
that.
So even if you're married, you would say that was wrong.
Yes.
What?
There's a difference between looking at someone lustfully and lusting after them and loving your wife and wanting to be intimate with them. There's a difference.
Please, man.
Bro,
For God's
if-
sake, grow up, man. What's
You,
the matter with you?
you don't.
What are you talking about? If you find your wife super attractive, or your wife finds you super attractive and she desires you, that's a form of lust, right?
Yes, but it's about controlling your lust, and it's not about, because the thing is, bro.
Hold on a second.
You go for it. You go for it. You go for it. Yeah.
So are you saying that to have? I don't know how deep to go with this conversation, but
Go as deep as you like.
okay. So are you telling me to find your wife attractive or find your husband attractive, to desire them and have intimacy with them? You're saying that that's somehow wrong, is it?
Okay, so you're saying that Muhammad was lusting after Aisha.
Forget what Why are you talking about Muhammad?
No,
Why
because
Salman Rushdie? Why are you doing
I'm showing, giving you an example of where lust
no,
isn't.
why? Look, listen.
Bro,
If,
you're
you're going
talking
to
over
be
me again.
disrespectful, no, listen.
I'm not being
Daman, if you're gonna be
disrespectful. I'm actually
you
giving you
are,
an example of
you
where
are.
he
No,
was not being lustful by
no.
marrying Aisha. He was doing
You're
something
being
that he thought was good because he thought Allah ordained it for
okay,
him.
Daman. So you know what I'm going to do? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to kick you off the stream. You know why I'm going to
That's
kick
no
you off
problem,
the
bro.
stream? I'll explain to you before I kick you off.
Yeah, you're
I'll
more
explain
than
to you
welcome to.
why.
Yeah, you're more than welcome
Okay,
to.
because you know it's precisely this type of ridiculous way of thinking. It's so meandering. It's so all over the place.
Okay.
We started with a person who is married, already married. And what did you do? You changed it to someone who was not yet married.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just disingenuous.
Okay.
And that shows a level of
That's no.
disingenuous.
I said Muhammad married Aisha. He wasn't lusting after her. I never said he lusted after her because she's a child. I never said anything that could be taken as
you're doing the
offensive.
same thing again. You know, Demands, normally you're really nice, and
Bro, you guys have been
unfortunately,
talking
I'm
over me.
surprised
You guys are
that,
changing the subject. Like I said, I came to talk about Surah 424, and we've talked about everything but.
just before you go, can you read for me Surah 425, please?
I've not got that one loaded up. Bear with me 1 second. Surah 425. And those of you who cannot afford to marry free, believing women, then marry such believing women whom your right hand possesses.
Okay.
Allah knows about your faith.
So
All of
that's
you
fine,
belong
that's
to
the
one
point.
another.
Yeah. Okay, so what is it saying to you there?
It says that if you can't afford to marry free, believing women, so basically, if you can't marry someone who is Muslim and free, because only non-Muslims are slave women, then you can marry your slave woman who's not free and who is not Muslim. So as long as that's saying that a Muslim woman cannot be a slave woman and she will always be free, but a non-slave woman is not Muslim and she's not free, and you could do what you want with her because your right hand possesses her, such as marry her.
No. So this is really important.
No, because I'm going with the verse before as well as this. So that's why.
Because what you're doing is you're conflating things. This is the problem. So, because what you're trying to do is your Islam allows slave narrative. This is the thing that everyone comes with.
I really don't want that narrative. I'd rather have a good explanation for this.
Let me explain. The problem is that's how you're coming across. Yeah, and this is common. It's like
it's just because I've asked a question about this, which you probably had from people who have come from this angle. I would rather have a good explanation. If I could have a good explanation that I could go, okay, that makes sense, and that I can understand that is done in a very good way, a very righteous way. It's not done in a selfish way. It's not done in a lustful way. I could go, cool. Okay, this is why I'm asking the questions.
I'm gonna give you the 45-minute video where I spoke about this in depth. Then, yep, have a look at that and then come back and then you can
countdowns on.
Give me your views. Yeah.
Okay.
Because if you want that, then this is where you can get it from. You can easily find it because it's available.
The thing is,
the whole point here is that there's two things. There was let me give you just one example as to set a principle. So there was so in that time, we're talking about the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and before, slavery was rife. It's in all societies. Whether you go to in your subcontinent, Africa, China, wherever the West, they were all. This was rampant and throughout. Yeah. What the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, did was he specifically banned all forms of enslavement, all of them, except for one, which is in battle. So because before you could just, if I was stronger than you, then what I would do is I would just grab you and you're enslaved. Doesn't matter if you're free or not free. The strong rule. Yeah. First thing the Prophet peace be upon him did was he banned any form of enslavement except for in battle. So why was this exception? Okay, I'll give you the reason for the exception.
Please do.
When the Arabs fought battles, they fought battles out in the desert. 2 weeks, a week going out there in your caravan, and then you would fight, and then that would be the battlefield. Then the winners would take the whatever was remaining in terms of their weapons and gold, etc. Yeah, and what the Arabs would do, one of their traditions was they would bring with them motivants, things that would motivate them to fight stronger.
Mm-hmm.
They would bring their gold, their monies, and they would bring their women and children. Because why? If you're fighting and you see these, then that gives you the spurs you to fight stronger, because there's a lot to lose. It's putting the thing that you're going to lose in front of you. Now, when you have a battle, you defeat the people, and either the men are killed or they run away. One of those two things happen, right? So they've left that theater of war. They've run away, yeah, or they're killed. Then what would happen? What would happen to the women and children that are left behind, and the money? What would happen?
They
You
should
could
be
take the gold. You could take the gold and you could leave them in the middle of the desert. All the men gone. They have no means of travel, no means of, and they would simply die. They would die. Yeah, that's not. So that's not the what they would do is these people would be taken. They would be taken in. They would be captured. Yeah, and because they're not part of the society, there's no prisons. There's no systems like this. The way that they were then kept under watch, but also made useful within the society to integrate them, is they were distributed amongst the people who lived in who were in the part of the battles. They would go to different homes. If somebody was captured with their husband, yeah, they're captured with their husband, then that relationship continues. They're allowed to carry on with that. They would be placed together in that system, so their husband and wife, and that would carry on. If you leave that scenario, there's your husband has been killed, or they've essentially abandoned you, and they're nowhere to be found. Then you're given a time where you're integrated into that society, and then you can, if you choose to. So there's no compulsion in this. You can choose to have relations with the person looking after you. Now you can say, okay, but isn't that outside of marriage, Imran? Why are you saying that's allowed? Why are conjugal relations allowed in this case? This is a fundamental misunderstanding of what. So marriage is, people often think it's a contract between the wife and the husband, but actually no, it's a contract. So usually, so this is my understanding, and I could be wrong in this. This is one of the requirements, is that there is a guardian who gives the guardianship of the woman to her husband. I've looked after her, I've kept her safe, and now I'm going to give her guardianship to you. That would constitute the marriage, and she agrees that yes, I trust this person to be someone who will be my guardian, or my husband, etc., whatever that might be. Now, in these scenarios, there is no guardianship, and the guardianship has gone to the individual already who's looking after. Now, it's up to that individual and this woman if they want to engage in conjugal relations. Now, let me give you an example of just to give you a principle. So this is well known. You can read about this. There were 7 brothers who were allocated a slave girl who would cook and clean for them. Now the young brother, one the youngest of the brothers, got angry and he slapped her. She went to the Prophet, peace be upon him, to complain. Yeah. What did the Prophet, peace be upon him, do in this scenario? Do you know?
No, I've not heard this one before.
He said, free her. Okay, he said, free her. Now, the question I want to ask you is, if the Prophet, peace be upon him, wouldn't allow that slave girl to be slapped, do you think he would allow her to be raped?
Okay, I can understand where you're coming from. And
this is a rhetorical question. No, no explanation required.
You don't want me to answer it? Okay, cool.
No,
cool.
What I'm saying to you, the answer is obvious.
Yeah, it should be obvious. However, okay, sorry, you're still not finished. Yeah.
Her to be slapped, would he allow her to be raped? Now, you're sounds like you're saying no. He would allow her to be raped.
No, I'm saying logically, if he's not allowing a slap, then yeah, obviously he wouldn't allow rape. Oh, I completely understand that.
That lays down a principle for you. Do you understand? Now, so now when you look at this verse, you understand the following verse as well. Now, I'll give you another example, another amazing.
Sorry, do you mind if I touch on something you said before you carry on? So you said that if sorry, Abbas, I know you wanted to kick me. I know you said that if a slave woman is married, the husband and her will be in the same place, and they will.
If they are taken together.
Yeah, if they're taken together.
If your husband's killed, obviously you're no longer married. He's dead, right?
Yeah, but
if your husband's run away, and he's abandoned you, and he doesn't come to claim,
Mhm.
then essentially the marriage would become annulled because your guardian has abandoned you. Do you understand?
Mhm.
Now I'll give you an example
So,
of this.
sorry,
There was a
I just
famous
wanted to pick up.
I'm going to give you a clarifying example
I
that
know,
will really
but
help
I
you.
really wanted to touch on this before you carried on a little bit.
Yeah.
Because the point was going to be was according to the 424. This is why it gets to me, because this is why I'm like, it's so hard to wrap my head around. It says also forbidden are married women except female captives in your possession. So
Yeah. So what have I explained to you?
it sounds like it's saying that those female captives can be married as well. It's saying that married
So
women aren't allowed except if they're captives.
this is so if you'd heard my words, if you're abandoned by your guardian, so you've
Yeah.
been in a battle somewhere that's taken you 2 weeks to travel out of, the person hasn't come to make a claim. Now I was going to give you an example of where someone has come to make a claim. I'll
Okay,
give you an
please do.
example.
Yeah.
There was a battle that everyone talks about, which is the Battle of Otas. Yeah. There was a tribe that was fighting the Muslims in the middle of nowhere. They had a battle. The Muslims defeated them, and the women and children were taken. And the Prophet was waiting there. Yeah, he waited in that scenario. Now, what happened? These guys, they should say, yeah, let's, we can do what we want, according to the man's golden dragon, it's fine, we can just go for it. We're going to just do what we want with you guys, whatever, we're allowed to. You're captured now.
According
it
to
doesn't matter if
me,
you're married. No, I'm just giving you a scenario because this is the point. This is the position you're asking about.
No,
So,
I know, but that's the position
now,
I'm arguing against. That's the reason I wanted
to. Now what happens is that the people come. These have run away. Most of the men have been killed. Some run away, but the men come. Some of the men come back.
Mhm.
And the Prophet has been waiting for some time. It wasn't more time than the companions expected.
Mm.
They came back and they came to the Prophet with a flag of parley, whatever, so they're not fought. They're saying, and the Prophet said to them, look, now you have to understand, he's already defeated them in battle. He has the possession of their families and the possession of their gold. Yeah? He's got everything in his hand. Yeah, completely. So he says to them, okay, I'll give you a choice. You can either have your honor or you can have your gold, your wealth. Now he doesn't have to give them any choice. He says you can just say get lost. There's nothing in this. If he's an evil, lustful, warmongering individual that people want to paint it out, they can just say, "Well, get lost. I'm not interested. We've got everything we need. You guys can just go into the desert and die." But what the Prophet said is he gave them a choice, and they said, "Oh, we would take out honor." And then the women, and all of the women and children were returned back. And there was one, and it's interesting. They were asked if they wanted to go back to their families. They were asked. It wasn't simply go back. It was, do you want to go back to your families? And they went back to their families. Now, the point here is that the concept that you have is, and many people have, is they because they can't actually deal with the fundamental theological realities of Islam and the fundamental reality of the preservation of the texts, etc., and the veracity of the religion. What happens is they go to these sidelines and they try and smear the character of the Prophet peace be upon him. But if you look at the examples within the history, they all go against this if you actually go to them in depth.
Yeah, but
now these are a couple of the points that I explained in that 45-minute video. I'll put the link up for you and you can have a look further.
Okay,
so that's
cool.
the response to both of those.
I appreciate that, Imran.
Now you understand that. But
I appreciate that, Imran. Just I'm going to finish up and then you can kick me off and do what you need to do. But essentially, that explanation you gave makes you guys not look evil. It gives a good painting of what you were trying to represent. So me asking this question isn't inherently bad. It is just a simple question. But you guys were like, oh, I've got some kind of agenda or something.
No, it's when you started to talk about lusting and then
because I'm trying to understand the lust,
and that just came
that's
across,
where I'm getting the
it wasn't the right etiquette that we would expect from you, because we've interacted with you before and we know you're better than that.
Yeah, but you guys kept talking over me as well.
Yeah, but you don't get
what it is, we've got a short time here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
And sometimes when somebody is literally making often statements that are either contradictory or they just do not work, we need to move things along. Sometimes it does appear that we have to interrupt, but in any case, Deman's always
Adios.
well, sometimes a pleasure. We'll speak to you again, I'm sure. Bye-bye. Sometimes when you ask a very direct, poignant question, the fact that the person won't answer it or won't even entertain the question, I think it speaks volumes, because the answer is basic. It's simple. It's common sense. It doesn't matter how I feel. It doesn't matter what makes me happy or what makes me sad. It doesn't matter. What matters is Allah going to be pleased with me with doing such and such act, worshipping in this way or behaving in a certain way? And if the answer to that is no, Allah will not be happy with that. It doesn't matter if you feel elated, over the moon about doing something.